who said like next year or next quarter, their financial wasn't doing well, they won't fire people doing business ops? You never know. So in this case, given the chance of people laying off in big tech companies and startup are the same, why don't you focus on your passion? Because a limited time in your life, you can take more risk, and or you're forced to take more risk because risk on both sides are the same.
Yeah.
Then why don't you just do something amazing, create some product, and then in a year you already like gain those experiences.
So let's talk about a slightly different aspect of breaking into product management, which is, I think a lot of candidates, when they first approach it, they're thinking about a very small subset of product management opportunities. They're thinking about Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta / Facebook. And they don't think broadly beyond that. Like, hey, I want to be a PM, but it's like, actually, really what you're saying is I want to be a PM at one of maybe 5 companies. Maybe it's slightly bigger list, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we call that formula list.
World of product management and opportunities outside of those companies. And I want to just hear a little bit of your thoughts on what do you think about taking an alternate path into breaking into product management and actually targeting and focusing on companies outside of the, quote unquote, FAANG companies as a strategy?
Yeah, I think number one thing is that we need to be realistic to understand the latest market. It is true, as we're filming the video right now, like FAANG companies are not hiring. They are hiring very limited positions. I still have a student interviewing for Amazon, the last mile PM positions. They only open very limited opportunities. And one student joined Meta as a contractor TPM was because they don't hire full-time unless they're very critical positions. And so you can still get in, but only maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3, I don't know, maybe 10. My point is very limited. Yeah. Okay, so in this situation, I want people to really think about designing a long-term career path. To basically ask yourself this question, what would you like to be 20 years down the road, right? So do you want to start your own company? Or you love creating products that actually impacting people's lives? And if you can answer the question very clear to yourself, and then design a career path will be much easier. For example, myself and lots of people or my students or people following my YouTube channel, and their goal is very clear. It's that we love building product. And then 70% of my student long-term say, I want to start my own company. I want to be the CEO of product. I want to be like CEO of my own company. So they're very, very clear regarding their long-term strategic planning for the whole life and the career. So therefore, to them, no brainer. Regardless, I start from startup PMs. Of course, the best case scenario is FAANG PMs. But it's hitting my goal of creating product that impacting people's lives and also make themselves really happy. When I was a PM, even right now, I'm very happy. Oh, every single day talking about different kind of like tastes of product. It's very happy. So therefore, in the near term, I suggest people to definitely focus on tier 1 companies only if they're hiring. For example, if you still want to join tier 1 companies, and now I call them like formula companies, which including FAANG company plus like Microsoft,
Uber
like
and Airbnb is in there.
Uber, yeah. And TikTok, I add TikTok to it. I think they're very sexy nowadays. They might be kicked out of the US. We never know in the long run, but they pay people very well.
Complicated status for them.
It is true. It is true, but they have the highest daily active users in social media space. It's one of my students recently landed a job offer from TikTok. She's getting paid $340,000 from TikTok, and she only had 2 years experience. And yes, they're still hiring like crazy. So you just need to find out. Uber is still hiring. We are working with Uber to hire the ad leads. So they want to implement more ads, like more and more ads on Uber apps, right? By the way, we have our own B2B recruiting agency, which is working with company to hire people for them because we're a big pool of candidates anyway. So we get connected with those tier 1 companies. I still think they're tier 1. So if tier 1 companies are still hiring, I recommend everybody to focus on the tier 1 company. Whoever is hiring, you just need to get in. They still hire candidates. You go to these companies' website, and they still have lots of people. And every single week, we have students still interviewing with tier 1 companies, no problem for sure. And then pay you big bucks right now. but they're only limited tier 1 companies who are hiring. So in this case, I suggest people to join any small, medium companies who can offer you great product management opportunities. Let me define small, medium companies. So lots of small, medium companies, actually they're large. For example, like one of my students working for Datadog, 5,000 employees, but they're B2B company. They're doing like a cloud infrastructure monitoring. Only if you're in the space, you never heard of them. You heard a dog name, but Datadog, you don't know what it's about. You saw a data company. In reality, it's a cloud monitoring company, right? But very popular. And my friend basically told me that they are growing like nuts, even during recession, our current economy. It's crazy. And and then her team is hiring, they're also hiring people under her to grow so that she rise into a leadership position. So those like companies you never heard of, but they're hiring. So that's what I mean by small, medium company. That 5,000 people, they are small, medium. To me, is medium companies, not the size of Google, Meta. Fast growing company, very exciting. And you grow with a growing company, you will get promoted much faster than other people as well. Now this medium-sized company is also smaller companies like 500 people company or 1,000 people company. And yes, you can still join those companies. Those companies still pay very well. Another student of mine, he is Canadian. He actually landed a job in the US. I have so many like international, like Canadian or like European students that are trying to move to US and get US bucks and because they get paid a significant more of the currency strengths. So some of my students, a Canadian citizen, landed a job in the US and his base salary is $170,000, $170K base salary for a company like you never heard of, just 1,000 people company, and then plus equity, another 70K equity plus bonus, something like that. Is over 200, way over 200 for 1,000 people company as a senior PM. And yes, of course, like entry-level people are not getting senior PM position. He's an entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur for 3 years. He transitioned to PM, and lots of people can still make it happen. So, and then you can just jump from those not famous company to consumers to Google, Meta type of companies. 1 year later, they start to hire again. I believe that's the best path ever. Kenan, what do you think?
I think it's a very good path. I think there's a couple of ways that I think about it. There's one, there's just like, look at the smaller tech companies like Google's like, mega company, but Datadog is a great example. Even a company like, I don't know, who were we talking about the other day? Twilio or something like that, like Viva Systems. Like there's all these other companies out there. There's a wide swath, and a lot of them have opportunities and are growing, and you will still learn a lot of great skills there. The other whole class of companies that I actually think is really interesting is look at some of the really big, quote unquote, like traditional companies that hire PMs increasingly these days because software is embedded into everything. So for example, the one I love to throw out is always Starbucks, right? Like Starbucks has a bunch of PMs, and they actually have a mobile app that is probably one of the most used mobile apps, certainly in the US. And I think it actually processes like, they're in like the top 10 of payment processing just because so many people use it for like order ahead functionality. It's like, that's like a really cool product management role and trajectory that could be there. And it also could set you up great to do all sorts of other things in product management at potentially bigger name tech companies in the future. The other thing I'd love to ask you about is like, so when you have because I think there is this contrast that sometimes people will make of like, okay, like I want to be a PM long-term, or I want to be a PM and then ultimately a CEO or founder, something like that. And they have some clarity around that vision, but in the short term, they end up making these decisions of like, well, I can't get a product manager role at Google, but I did get this like BizOps role or strategy role, but I got a product management offer from, doesn't even matter, let's say 1,000-person tech company that most people haven't heard of. Which should I take? Like in that situation, how do you think about that?
Yeah, great question. I think to me, the answer is very obvious. I will still choose the smaller company with a PM title, really doing PM jobs, compared with doing business operations. For example, I have real life scenario, and two different people making two different choices. And then another friend of mine also worked for BCG, but he left earlier. His career choice right now is that when he left BCG, he really wanted to focus on what he wanted to do next. And he ended up landing an offer from Google working on financial analyst, by back office doing financial reporting.
Yeah, financial ops or something. I think you mentioned this. Yeah.
Yeah, you call it financial ops. Yes, yeah, the financial ops. And he's one of my best friends, and actually, and he's like, should I take it? It's Google. Nancy was like, you told me you want to become PM. And later on, so he ended up didn't take it. It's just like the job. I think there's a huge contrast between strategic thinking of BCG consultant to like I'm doing financial business op. It's working for Google, but the work itself is very boring. But he ended up joining education company to take on bigger roles and helping the education company to grow, working on product, many different things and he also told me the work-life balance is very good. Of course, not as strategic as what BCG task he was doing in the past, but it is much more rewarding. So I definitely suggest people taking those kind of paths. It's very funny. I talked to, I have my own podcast. I brought in someone, his YouTube channel is called Seattle Data Guy. He's very big in the data space. And he came over here and he said something very funny. He was like, dude, everybody getting laid off anyway nowadays. There's no differences between big companies and small companies. You join a startup have a higher risk in the past, but now Meta, Google, Apple, the rounds of layoff anyway. So there's the risk join bigger companies, small company are equally the same moving forward. So you just need to choose which one will feed your growth much better. And let's say you join Google as business ops. Who said like next year or next quarter their financial wasn't doing well, they won't fire people doing business ops? You never know. So in this case, given the chance of people laying off in big tech companies and startup are the same, why don't you focus on your passion? Because a limited time in your life, you can take more risk, or you're forced to take more risk because risk on both sides are the same. Then why don't you just do something amazing, create some product, and then in a year you already gain those experience, maximum 2 years, and then Google, these kind of people come hire again. Especially Meta loves entrepreneurs. They love entrepreneurs.
Meta in particular, for sure. Has a strong bias towards that. I think my general inclination is, if you want to go the product management route and someone offers you that product role, you better have a really strong reason to go then take a non-product role, even at a company with sort of like the vanity and the sort of name that comes with going to Google. Like, there better be something more than just I'm going to Google for that. Like, if it's like, oh, it's product marketing, not product management, but it's on the dream product area I want to be on, and so I can see how I could start there and transition into it. But generally it's like, if you want to be a product manager and someone gives you the chance, go get those skills, and then you can use that to level up either there or transition to a bigger company or another company in that industry, etc. But because of everything we were talking about earlier, right? It's a basket of skills, and if someone's giving you the chance to learn it on the job and pay you, and you haven't had that yet, get that PM experience on your resume, because it makes everything else just so much easier down the line for that next job and
exactly
where you're trying to go.
I always tell others that your whole life is a marathon. Sometime in our lifetime, if you really want to join Google, you can join Google, no problem, for sure, 200%. Yes, you can. You delay it for a year, maybe maximum 2, and then later on you jump to Google right away. You get paid the highest instead of doing business op. People doing business op, I guarantee it takes them longer than 2 years to become a PM. And even if they become PM, they're not Google PM. I guarantee you. Business op in Google will not become a Google product manager. They will become product manager at startups. And then they finally repeat the process, then going back up. why
Yeah,
are you
it
doing
may
that?
be more of a winding path than some people think, especially I think because that route is like more popularly known these days of like, oh, join, get your foot in the door and then move up. And a lot of smart people are trying to do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I actually have 5 of my students rejected FAANG offers. They land an Amazon offer. Another student of mine also recently land the contracting offers at Google. She decided not to join. I have several of them. It just be like, it's just not the type of product, type of things. And also somehow contracting position is lower, the salary is lower. I was like, the combination, everything wasn't perfect. So I'm going to wait for the next opportunities.
Yeah. And
They
converting from contractors, I don't know all the specifics, but generally tends like making that conversion from contractor to full-time is tough at these big companies. Like it's not necessarily something they want to constantly be doing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Kenton, do you have some good examples in terms of you were working for Google in the past, right? Did you see other people in Google? Was it likelihood from your coworkers' perspective, they became a PM at Google was because they're doing internal transfer from business of Google into Google PM, or they're from outside? What the percentage look like when you were working for Google?
It's interesting because I do think it's changed. I was at Google at an interesting time. It was 2006 to 2009. Company was a lot smaller. You know, it was 5,000 people when I joined. It was 20,000 when I left, and it was growing just like leaps and bounds. Like it was crazy. And so there were a lot of opportunities for people that wanted to move into product that didn't have the formal qualifications that Google would look at for an outsider. And so a lot of people, like I know, like there was a lot of people that made that transition that are now very successful product managers, founders, that started in different roles. And it still happens. I just think as a percentage wise, it's much harder because there's a lot of people trying to do it. It's definitely possible, but it also like when I talk to some of those folks, and actually one of them that I can think of is a guy named Bill Farrell, who was on our YouTube channel recently talking about this. He made that transition. And Bill is like Bill's a super smart, accomplished guy. He's like a physics undergrad. He worked at NASA for a while. He came to work at Google. He's since gone on to start 2 companies, both backed by YC. And like his transition into product management, Google still took like a year and a half and like someone mentoring him and coaching him. And he had like done all this work on the side. We actually like coded a feature that Google launched into the AdWords product that had like a multi-million-dollar positive impact. And still they were like, I don't know, should we move him into product management officially? Like he doesn't technically have a CS degree, you know? So it's like, even then, like it takes concerted effort. And I think people sometimes underestimate that, like people are like, oh, I can just switch. Like, yeah, you can switch. And Bill did end up switching, but like it takes time and it takes a lot of effort.
That's a lot of effort. I have faster track. It's crazy. So another student of mine, that's no. Hey guys, like another many different success stories. It's crazy. I'm not student of mine. He eventually joined Google, but at the beginning he was doing he did a PhD and he joined AMD, the chip company, and he worked there for 3 years, more engineering focused type of role, and then he switched into and then he joined my program. He was like, I really want to become a PM. Just let me get the foot in the door. And we landed him a job in the self-driving car company as a PM. So very, very exciting job. But he only works there for 5 months in total. Guess what his next step? He joined Google as a PM.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of like getting some skills, getting it on your resume, getting that brand, and then just like move it. It's a very like tried and true. Like I think it often is. You know, it's just it's a proven way. It works, for sure.
Yeah, but definitely from gaining experience from startups and then join Google is much faster.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that this is a good like sort of like end cap on this thread, right? Of like the reason that like going to some of these small companies or smaller companies or traditional companies with PM is like you can do that, get that experience, and then it makes you that much more attractive to a company like Google, if that's the goal, right? Because Google's then looking at, well, this guy was a PM at Datadog or Starbucks on payments versus here's this other person that seems smart, but they haven't done it before. They haven't been a PM, so it's riskier to us.